Hi there, and welcome to this week's edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast, which is made by fans for fans, and where the content is absolutely free. And as I say to you every week, guys, it's not just the pod we've got free. If you go to the Gersnet website, you'll get the forums, there's articles, we have the social media, there's a history archive there. It's all independent and free content made by us for you. If it's the first time listening to the pod, we would encourage you to subscribe and share it on social media. We have over 3,500 subscribers now, so thanks to everyone who's subscribed so far. We're live tonight and the cameras are on again, and I've already made an ass of it. I forgot to unmute, but hey ho, that's why we're such an amateur setup. So we're live tonight. It's a Sunday night, but the pod and the show will be available to download and stream on a variety of platforms, including Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, and Spotify. So on to the host introductions, and what has been a pretty decent day again here for us Rangers supporters. 4-0 win up at Dingwall today, and Celtic drop points at Sharkhead. So we're live tonight. So we're further ahead in the league race. Celtic still have games in hand, obviously, but you know it's all looking good. So my guests tonight, you should see them all in the new fancy gizmo. It's as I said, it's like Gillette Soccer Saturday at the moment. I've got Ross Bennett and I've got the boss, Stuart Franklin or Frankie. Ross, I'll come to you first. How are you after that today? Are you as happy as me?
I'm thrilled. Yeah, look, it's been a very nice day. I feel a wee bit exposed being on the camera. I know this is all very new for us. Not as exposed as I might otherwise be. But no, it's been a good day. I'm wondering if you've got a white Christmas tree because you refuse to have anything green in the house.
Actually, that's just, I'm in the kitchen and there's a bit of a story behind that tree. We moved house last year. So in the last year in our old house, we normally get a real tree and we couldn't because we'd got a new couch and it was too big. So we got that for the living room. So the green tree, the proper tree, is in the living room through there, and my wife's put this wee one up in the kitchen. So, but yes, a limited amount of green things in my house, Ross. Obviously, that goes without saying. Is that a green cardigan you've got on, by the way?
Green cardigan.
Or a green hoodie?
It's not. No, it's not green. It's deep teal.
Oh, I don't even know what that is. And also joining us tonight, we've got the boss. He's scurrying away in the background there, making sure that all this video stuff works properly. Is Frankie? How are you, Frankie? Are you a happy bear today, like the rest of us?
I'm very well, mate, and in a good mood after a good win today, and obviously Celtic dropping points, it makes us even happier.
It does indeed, yeah. And what makes it even more hilarious is the scenes outside Celtic Park again tonight, which were a joy to behold. But we won't go too much into that. We'll focus on the Teddy Bears and the Rangers, and have a wee look at the Ross County game. Another convincing performance by Rangers today. Difficult conditions, bumpy park, and some other stuff that we'll come on to talk about. So we'll have a wee look at that. We'll have a look at the Standard Liege game on Thursday night, which saw us qualify for the knockout stages for the second year in a row with a game to spare. And we'll also have a wee discussion about the Club 1872 thing, and particularly Dave King's interview on Friday and some of the stuff that he said. So lots to talk about, so we'll get straight in about it. Ross, I mean, I'll come at you first on the game today. A fairly routine 4-0 win, goal spread throughout the team. I was getting a wee bit, just before the goal, I was starting to get a wee bit sort of twitchy. We hadn't created a huge amount of chances, but once we got the goal, we seemed to settle into a rhythm, and a fairly routine 4-0 win at the end of the day.
Yeah, I remember actually that the home game against them, the game at Ibrox a few months back, they were hard to break down, and it was a little bit frustrating and a bit slow and pedestrian at times. But I think there's a few things to say about today's game. I wouldn't want to underestimate the impact that pitch had. I think it looked quite difficult to manoeuvre around that, so I think that was a factor. But Ross County were, sitting very deep. They obviously had a game plan, which was to frustrate us. And what was it? 90 seconds before we got that opening goal, they had a very, very good chance, which was only thwarted by McGregor doing what McGregor does, and he made a very, very good save for the first time he was called upon in what feels like about 9 weeks. But look, ultimately, once that goal went in, certainly in the second half, things opened up a little bit more. I thought we had some phenomenal standout performances from one or two individuals who we'll come on to talk about. But again, the first half wasn't great. It was a little bit dull, I thought, a little bit drab, but good teams find ways to win, and we've come away from a game in Dingwall where we probably didn't play the best that we've played this season. We'll have better games, and we've still won by 4-0. I mean, it's a very, very good time to be a Rangers fan at the moment.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I thought the pitch was horrific today, really bumpy, and you could see it was. I kind of got the impression that was deliberate, actually, that maybe Ross County had fluffed the pitch up a wee bit in order to sort of stop us playing our usual game. But once we got the goal, we settled down, and a convincing win. Frankie, I'm deliberately coming to you with this question as a member of the Goalkeepers Union yourself, as a former goalkeeper. Alan McGregor now, myself and John spoke about him on Thursday night in the preview show for the Standard Liege game on Thursday there. He broke the European appearance record, 83 appearances. Today, he kind of again showed how vital he is. 0-0, he pulled off a save. As Ross said, he's not been brought into action much this season, the way Rangers have defended. But there was a stat came out before the game that I thought was just incredible. Rangers have only conceded 3 goals all season, which in itself is a superb sort of stat. But Alan McGregor's only conceded 1 of those. The other 2 were conceded by McLaughlin, and it was an own goal. It was Edmondson. So the stat that I sort of realised today is no opposition player has scored against Alan McGregor this season. And we're approaching Christmas, and that is, if you think about it, that's remarkable, really. And he really is a vital member of that team.
Aye, I mean, McGregor's been obviously at Rangers since he was a young man, and in both his spells, he's never really let us down. It took him a while to break through. He went through the sort of usual route of going on loan to clubs, and then finally breaking through at the first team in his first spell, and he was excellent then. And he's matured even more. I mean, his handling's good. He's a great shot stopper. I think his distribution's improved, which is important because I think it's one of McLaughlin's best attributes. Is he's really good on the ball, and he actually moves the ball really quick for a goalkeeper, and means we play at a tempo. I think McGregor's had to work on that part of his game because make no mistake, McLaughlin did really well at the start of the season when McGregor was out injured, so there is a challenge there, and if McGregor doesn't do the business, I don't think the manager will have any qualms at all in bringing McLaughlin in. So I think it's just an aspect to the whole team. We're really lucky to have 2-3 players in every position, in every role that seem to be capable of coming in and playing well and contributing to the team. And I mean, the save today, I thought it was excellent. Fair enough, it was pretty much straight down his throat, but the guy hit it at pace. He could have put it either side, but McGregor stood up to it. He could have easily have sold himself, but he didn't. He stood up and he was able to claw it away, and it was really important because clearly we opened the scoring just 2 or 3 minutes after that, and it was a really big save, and it's easy when you go 1-4 4-0 to forget that your defence has to do the business when the forwards on the scoring when it's 0-0, and I think with that in mind, McGregor deserves a lot of credit.
Ross, as Frankie alluded to there, McGregor makes that save, and then something like 2 minutes later we're up the park and we go 1-0 up with Kamar Roof. Tav again with the assist, and he got 2 assists today and a goal, and Steven Gerrard said in his sort of post-match comments after the game that he's playing at a level that he's never seen him reach before in his time at Rangers anyway. And I think it's worth mentioning because Tav has, struggled at times and he's had his critics at times, but this season, he is just on a new level. I mean, he was asked how many goals he thought he would score today, and he said he would be happy if he got 20. Now, for a right back to say that is quite incredible, and you really do. I mean, we on this show, including myself, we've given him stick when he's sort of deserved it. So if you're giving him stick, you have to give him high praise indeed when he's performing at the level that he's performing at the now.
Absolutely, massive credit to Tavernier. The way he's conducted himself this season, he's been. I do not think there's a better player in the Premiership this season than Tavernier. He's just been exquisite. He's phenomenal to watch. Obviously, as you say, the criticism of Tav has been he's very good going forward, but he doesn't do anything defensively. He gets beaten too many times. So I'm not sure you can throw that criticism at a player who is in the back line that's conceded 3 goals in the league this season. I think that argument is slightly invalid now. The whole defence has shown that defensively they're very, very capable. So he's turned into a very, very complete player. But I think as well, it's not just what he's doing on the pitch. Obviously, Gerrard, as you alluded to, said that he's preparing properly. His training is, he's just on another level this year. But it's the way that he kind of represents the club and all of the other stuff that a captain should do. Apparently it's even things like when a new signing shows up, he's making sure he's in the WhatsApp group and he knows where to go to get his haircut and get this and get that. And I think he's just an all-round good ambassador for the club. I think when he was brought to the club under Warburton and then was playing under people like Caixinha, I slightly worried that he was immature and he was never really a leader, and that made me a bit nervous when he was made captain under Gerrard. But the improvements that boy has made is just staggering to see, and I think we're really, really lucky to have him. I think he's the kind of player who could do very, very well down in England, who could make a really solid career. So I think we've been lucky to hold on to him as long as we have, and I think he's now right at the peak of his career. He seems happy with us, and I think it certainly looks like he's going to be the captain that gets to lift 55, which is, considering the output on goals and assists alone this season, is very well deserved.
Frankie, on the sort of goals today, shared around the team, Roof obviously got the first one, Tav, there was an own goal, and Defoe came on, Jermaine Defoe came on and scored on his 800th appearance, which again is quite remarkable. And I think Chris Boyd was right to highlight that when he comes on, he still looks like he wants to score goals. So, I mean, it is a good sign that we're sharing goals throughout the team. We're scoring lots of goals in every game. Our goal difference now is, I think we're like 21 goals ahead of Celtic. We're not conceding, sharing goals throughout the side. But a lot of comment today online and post-match as well, and the coverage with Chris Boyd about the sort of contribution of Morelos. How do you feel about that? I see people saying that he's dropping off and linking up the play, and that's why he's not scoring as much. But I still have slight concerns. It's not so much about the goal scoring. I think sometimes he's a wee bit wasteful with possession, and there are times I actually forget that he's playing. But how do you feel about it? Do you think it's this new system, or do you think there's an issue with his general all-round play at the moment?
I think Morelos is playing absolutely fine. I think his contribution to the team has been a bit underrated actually, and I think people have been a bit too quick to concentrate on his contribution above others. I mean, let's go back to Thursday night's game. I thought all 3 of them didn't really play very well in the first half, but the only person that was getting talked about certainly in our forum at half time was Morelos, which I thought was a wee bit unfair. After half time I thought all 3 played a bit better, and I think Morelos has done fine over the piece. There's no doubt he's had to change the way he plays, but he still occupies defenders in a similar way, and our first goal today showed that. I mean, the ball got played into him, he held it well. He could have played it out to Tav, he didn't, because the pass wasn't on, so he took it back to Davis. But by coming deep, he created that space for not only Tav to go in behind, but also Roof to get into the box as well. So I think, fair enough, he's not playing brilliantly. I think that's a fair point. He's not at the top of his game, but he is having to play a different role. I think we need to be a bit more patient in that respect and understanding. And I would see the point if he was missing a lot of chances, and then you could be critical of his lack of goals, but he isn't actually getting very many chances at all, and that's why he's looking a bit frustrated, I think, because he's doing quite a lot of hard work outside the box, and he isn't really getting his rewards in the box because there isn't much sort of falling to him. I mean, the day was a good example. Tav did well on the right hand side, cut it back. It wasn't the best cutbacks, and the defender put it into the goal. If it had been a decent ball for Tav, Morelos would have scored. And then obviously Morelos goes off. Eaton does quite well in the last couple of minutes, and Defoe scores. So Morelos must have been gutted. But at the same time, that's part and parcel of being a team player, and he has to understand that. And I think that's maybe taking a wee bit of time as well, and it's maybe explaining his frustration to a certain extent. But I think he's doing fine, and I certainly didn't think there's any reason to overreact or be too worried about his lack of goals, because I think he's still contributing to the team as a whole, and I think that's, at the minute, that's the most important thing.
Ross, staying on Morelos, there was an incident just before half time. You know, it was quite a bad foul actually. I don't know, I can't remember the boy who done it, but you know, it was pretty hefty, and he was booked. But there was an incident afterwards with Michael Gardine. You know, Connor Goldson was obviously annoyed and upset. Gerrard at half time was very upset as well, and it was sort of implied that something serious was said. Now, obviously, we're all, considering who the player is, it's Morelos and all the rest of it, and the fact that Connor Goldson seemed quite upset by it. You know, the sort of subject we all sort of moved to was it something of a racist nature or all the rest of it, but there seems to be a feeling now that it was something homophobic that he's been accused of saying. Now, Stuart Kettlewell, he sort of said he would have to get confirmation, and then he would do an investigation and to confirm what happened and what was said. He said that the referee said to him that the reason he was booked at half time was not linked to the sort of accusation. It is difficult, and we don't want to over speculate at the moment, but it does seem, Gerrard was visibly angry, Connor Goldson visibly angry, a couple of others. It seems like something has been said that the players didn't appreciate.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Gerrard doesn't tend to go to the referee at half time, and as soon as the whistle went today, he was straight to the referee, pointing to himself, pointing to players, pointing to the fourth official. Something's definitely happened, and it seems, by all accounts, it seems that something's been said. And like yourself, I was like, well, hang on, Morelos has been the target of racial or racist comments in the past. We sort of seem to forget that sometimes, but he was racially abused in a match by opposition supporters. So my mind immediately went there, as I think a lot of people's did. But yeah, it seems actually, certainly from some of the stuff that's been said online, obviously all of this is just to a degree speculation and people putting the dots together, but some people reporting what was allegedly said online now, and I think the pundits at the game, Ricky Foster, mentioned something along the lines of homophobia as well, so perhaps it was picked up on a Sky Sports microphone. If that is the case, there's just, and it's not even that there's no place for it in the game, it's just disgusting. It's awful, it's pointless. Also, by the way, it's Rainbow Laces campaign this week, so phenomenal timing to highlight the problem that this whole campaign's trying to drive out. Look, Gerrard was very upset, the players were very upset, quite rightly. If that is what's happened, and as we say, to a degree it's a bit of speculation at the moment, but it certainly does seem that something serious has happened, then it's really saddening, it's really disheartening in this day and age in a progressive country like Scotland and like the UK for that to happen. Not acceptable. I think Gerrard's response to it after the game, there seems to be two schools of thought on this. Some folks saying if he knows what was said, he should call it out and say that player made a comment that was unacceptable and we want to see action taken. Okay, fine, he could have said that, and what he did say was, I know what's been said. This is now for Ross County to sort it out. We have, we'll deal with this in our own way. And I think it's probably best not to play this out in the public domain. I think Stuart Kettlewell did the same thing, saying, look, we'll investigate it and we'll find out, we'll come to a conclusion. But I hope it doesn't get kind of swept under the rug. If something serious has been said, I think we need a high-profile example to show that this is not acceptable in football, in society, anywhere. It's just not on.
Sure. On the same issue, I think Ross makes a good point in terms of, we need to establish the facts, and Ross County seem to be going down that road. So, but I mean, it was obvious that Gerrard was angry, and I think he handled it quite well. He never made, he didn't go into details in terms of what he was claiming happened. He just said what was said was wrong and it needs to be investigated, and Ross County need to look into that. And I think that's maybe what we all need to do. So does it help when you see someone like Michael Stewart tonight on Sports Scene just saying, there's nothing to see here, let's just move on, nothing's happened. We're not sitting here saying that something's definitely happened. We're saying here that an accusation has been made and, a thorough investigation needs to happen. And then you've got Michael Stewart just sitting there going, no, nothing to see here, let's move on. That's not helpful in any way, shape or form, surely.
It's Michael Stewart's default position when it comes to anything related to Alfredo Morelos, isn't it? If it's Morelos, then he'll spend weeks talking about it and criticising him. If it's against Morelos, then we just have to move on. It was the same when the tackle earlier in the season, I think it was a Dundee United player, wasn't it, where he followed through and gouged a big hole in Morelos' thigh. There wasn't any problem. Let's move on. What's the big deal? Let's get on with it. And it's the same today. Morelos is subjected apparently to some kind of offensive language. I don't know how bad it was. But I'm sure it'll come out in the wash, to be honest. And I think when it does, I think Stewart will look pretty silly, as he often does. And it's just a shame that he's always the sort of main guy on the sports scene for week to week, because he's pretty hopeless. He puts himself over as some sort of intelligent, smug commentator when he's nothing of the sort, really. He's just another Chris Sutton light, and to be honest, I probably wouldn't rather not talk about him. I think if we want to talk about pundits doing a decent job just now, let's go back to Chris Boyd. I think he's doing fine, doing a much better job than Stewart, and somebody like Neil McCann, who still works for the BBC but is able to be much fairer in his discussion of Rangers. Whether, I mean, obviously McCann was a former Rangers player, and I don't think he hides the fact that he's still a supporter of us, but at the same time he's more than happy to be critical when he needs to be, and he knows a lot more about football and has played at a level that Stuart can only dream of.
Ross, we're in December, as we know, as the tree alludes to. It is a vital month, and it has been a vital month over the last couple of years. And the last couple of years has seen us having some tricky fixtures, and we had the cup final last year as well. And we've came through it well. And then come January, we've kind of lost our way a wee bit. It's different this year. We're currently 13 points clear. Celtic have got 2 games in hand, obviously. But we've got Dundee United next week, then it's Motherwell, then St Johnstone, Hibs at Ibrox, St Mirren away. 3 or 4 winnable games given the form that we're in at the moment, and then we play Celtic on the 2nd of January. Now, given Celtic have the cup final on the 20th of December, we could increase the points gap further. And then if we beat them on the 2nd, we are in a very, very good position. So a vital month. And when you consider all the work that the players have put in, that the management have put in to get us to this position, how vital is it that they just get through the next sort of 4 or 5 games and put themselves in a really good position come January the 2nd?
Yeah, absolutely vital. And look, the players all seem to have been sat down and told the significance of their media comments, that they always have to say, we take it one game at a time, we're not getting ahead of ourselves, it's still early days. I think now is the time to put that into practice. Show that you're not looking ahead to March, April, May. Show that you're focused on the here and now. Take it one game at a time. Because like you say, all of those games in the lead up to the Old Firm on the 2nd of January, they're all winnable. I mean, every game in this league is winnable for us. As you've seen from our record so far, we have beaten every single team in this. We've only played Hibs once, haven't we? But every single game is winnable, absolutely. So, it's crucial that professionalism remains at the heart of all of this, because we have the better players. I think we have the better players than any other squad in Scotland. We have the better coaching staff. We seem to have the better fitness. We seem to have the better tactics and ideas and everything. So, it's really, really positive. I think we'll get through December and then look into January and say, it's critical that we also keep up momentum in January. But I think everything is very, very positive, but it could all change, because, as you say, Celtic win their 2 games in hand. That puts them to within 7 points. So that's 2 wins and a draw that we would need to swing that by. It's not out of the question. That's over the course of a season. That's kind of standard that we would be dropping points. So it's by no means done. And I think, let's close out this calendar year and have at least a 13-point gap, regardless of how many games in hand they have. Let's close out this calendar year with a dominance. And I think we can all go into the new year, firstly, thankful that we're not having a winter break where we'll go on some jolly and then come back unfit and out of shape. Seems like Celtic are still going to Dubai. I'm not sure how they're squeezing that in with the number of games that they need to make up, but that's up to them. Also, COVID protocols don't seem to bother them about travelling to the Middle East at this time, but again, fine. So we don't need to worry about winter breaks and mid-season friendlies, mid-season training camps. That's all gone. It looks like we're not going to need to worry about going to Rugby Park again if my maths is right. It looks like they'll possibly end up in the bottom 6. Obviously, they had their not points deduction, but 3 points given for the game that they missed for COVID reasons have pushed them further into the bottom 6. So even little things like that might have a really big impact. We hate going to Rugby Park as a club, so that might have a big impact coming into the season. So yeah, there's still lots of hurdles to overcome, but we are passing every single test that is laid down to us. Let's close out this calendar year, and I think we can start to feel really, really positive. I think what I would say is I noticed a lot of Scottish media outlets, maybe a month, 6 weeks, 2 months ago, they were talking a lot about, yes, Rangers have been doing well, but this supercomputer predicts that Celtic will still win the league. That supercomputer comes from a website called 538.com. I've checked that just before we came on air. That supercomputer is now predicting that Rangers have an 88% chance to win the league. So it's all going well. We're on track. The media have stopped reporting about the supercomputer, which is maybe a good thing. But yeah, let's close out this year, and then I think we can start to really, really enjoy it come January, February time.
Frankie, on the January thing, last December was a successful December. With really good results against Celtic, against Hibs, and we really narrowed the gap. And that's the point I'm about to make. We were chasing last season. We were chasing the year before. We've now. I think Ross is right. We've got to take it game by game, and I think that's what Gerrard is really focused on at the moment. Every press conference, he just says focusing on the next game. And I get that, but 4 or 5 games, then a game at Celtic Park, we are pretty close to putting ourselves in a very, very good position moving on into January. But we also need to remember that nothing's won, and we just need to keep that focus on. So how do you feel about this December now that it does feel slightly different to me because we're leading from the front? The last 2 or 3 Decembers, it's been all about keeping up with Celtic and making sure we're close to them. This year it's totally different. We could go into January with 15, 16 point gap, if we win that game on the 2nd of January. So it does feel different. And how does that make you feel?
Confident, very confident actually. Ross mentioned it a few minutes ago. There's been a lot of hurdles this season, and every single one we seem to have cleared. We beat Aberdeen, we beat Kilmarnock, we've qualified for the Europa League nice and quick. We've came back for going 1-0 down in games. On Thursday we were 1-0 down, 2-1 down. We've had the various knocks, and I feel completely confident in this team. But one game that rings a bell actually in that front was the game over in Benfica when we conceded right after the first 60 seconds. The camera went to Gerrard, and he was completely calm at the side, and he was gesturing at the players to calm down, relax, not to worry, and just to play themselves into the game. And it took us 10 or 15 minutes, but we did do that. And the same things happened in a lot of the games domestically. Today, for example, we were almost half an hour before we scored, but the players didn't panic. They just kept knocking the ball about and kept playing our own game, and I think that's what I've enjoyed most about this team. We seem really focused, and maybe in other games you think, like last season or previously, you think there's been times where you can see there's a bit sort of panic involved, and the team are worrying about the next goal. I didn't really see that this time. They seem to have an impressive sort of confidence in themselves to go and win games, and I must admit, yes, we have to avoid complacency, and that's really, really important. But at the minute, I just didn't really see that for this team. They seem to know what's required in every match and go out and do it. And actually, in some ways, I didn't think we're playing all that well at times. I think there's periods in games, 20 minutes here or there, but we're not our best. We're not that fluent, but we're still going and beating teams fairly comfortably. And we did that today. I mean, I thought we didn't play that great at all for the first half. But we got a goal exactly the right time after County almost scored, and then the second half we seemed to be a bit better. You mentioned the pitch. The pitch was I mean, how many players slipped and fell in the first half? Kamara was bad for it. Roof, there was 2 or 3 county players as well. And I don't know if they changed their footwear, some of these guys, after half time, but you didn't see anybody slip in the second half, and they seemed to move the ball a bit quicker. They seemed to be a wee bit more confident, and that's what seems to be demonstrated time after time at the minute. And I think that's one of the things that's causing problems for Lennon and for Celtic, is we didn't look like dropping points. We look like the team that are the winners, that have been winning trebles and winning trophies and winning leagues. And at the minute, it's difficult to see us dropping points. That's not to say we won't, and it'll be interesting to see the reaction for the players and the manager and the fans, obviously, when the inevitable does happen. Because at some point we're going to draw, or we're going to get beat. You can't just keep winning games and no conceding goals. Something bad is going to happen, and we're going to have to deal with that. You're just hoping, as Ross said and yourself said, that we can get through to after the Celtic game and maintain the gap that we've got just now. And if you can be a net 7 points ahead, that's looking really good going into the next period of the season, where we're going to have more home games. So fingers crossed that it's going to get even more difficult for Celtic. And you don't know, obviously, what's going to happen over there over the next 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, is Lennon still going to be in a job tomorrow? I don't know. Certainly maybe not. If he keeps dropping more points, then there's no danger he's going to be kept on as manager ahead of the next game against us. So it's as I say, we can only avoid complacency and just keep hoping the players play like they're doing, because just now it's excellent, and that confidence is manifesting itself amongst the fans. And certainly, I can only speak personally, just watching Rangers now, it's great to watch, sitting relaxed, and you just didn't worry. And whereas in previous years you'd be panicking if you go 1-0 down at home against Standard Liege, or if you're still 0-0 after half an hour against Ross County. But no, now, so this is a positive we'll have to take, and it's up to the manager to maintain that and to manage the players and the fans' expectations over the next 2 or 3 weeks and beyond.
Ross, on the sort of character side that Frankie's sort of alluding to there, we got a wee sort of glimpse of it on Thursday night against Standard Liège. It was, went down 1-0 very early on, came back, and then within, a minute of coming back, we conceded another goal, and it was the 2 goals were fairly scrappy and a bit avoidable, actually, and a wee bit worrying. It was that sort of, is this the turning point? Is this when the Rangers of old sort of pop into it? But we came back well, and Scott Arfield, your favourite, he got the winner, and it was, I mean, it was probably the most hard-fought victory of the group so far. At points, I must admit, I had a bit of squeaky bum time going on, but again, it revealed a different side to this team, and it's something, again, we've questioned on this show. We've questioned the character of this team. We've questioned how they can react to bad things and tough moments in games, and that on Thursday night was the biggest example I think I've seen so far of, when they do face something, when the plan does go a bit wrong, they can come back, and they can come back well. And that footage, I don't know if you've seen it, the goal of Arfield, sort of from behind the goal, and you can hear all the shouts, especially to Tavernier. It just makes you, it just gives you so much confidence. This side can win well, but it also looks like they can win when the chips are down as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's encouraging to see that, because we haven't had to do that very often. I mean, the games against Benfica are slightly different, because that's us really going in as underdogs, and any result is a good result, really. But against Liège, there was so much at stake in that game to qualify with a game to spare. We needed to win that game to try and maintain the chance of us winning the group. So there was quite a lot at stake there. So you had to go down so early. Not necessarily early, but to go a goal behind in the way that we did. I thought we played really poorly, actually, in the first half. I thought we were lucky to get in level. So then to come out, to change it around, come out second half, it showed real character. That's that word that Brendan Rodgers always used to describe his players, is that they showed character. But they showed really good character to find a different way to win, to overcome. Let's be fair to Liège. Liège set up phenomenally. They identified our threats from fullbacks, and they nullified it. But we changed the game, we changed the setup, and it worked. So I think praise has to go to the players for the character that they showed and to grind out the result. And that's such a cliche, and I hate football cliches, but good teams find a way to win when they're not playing so well. And that was absolutely what happened on Thursday night. I didn't think we played that well, certainly in the first half. So praise to the character of the players for getting that win, and praise to the coaching staff for finding a way to do it and tweaking things and making changes and getting the result, because that's a huge result for us to qualify a week ahead of schedule. And to qualify, all we need to do this Thursday is match Benfica's result, and we win the group. And we end up playing an easy.
And we were fourth seed as well, remember?
And we were fourth seeds. It's so encouraging. It really is.
Frankie, on the 2 goals that Standard Liege got, I mean, the one thing that worried me was we allowed the crosses into the box, especially the second one. I think it was Kamara was standing way off, and just allowed the crosses into the box. And it was very unlike us. To concede 2 goals like that is not typical of Rangers this season. So, are you positive, or are you a cynic like me? On Thursday night, I was thinking, oh well, that's the start of it. This is the start of dodgy defending, and things are going to go different from here on in. Or do you think it was just a blip? It was just on the night. But as we've already said, we managed to get over it and secure the win anyway. But the manner of the 2 goals, I must admit, I did find slightly concerning.
Aye, the second goal in particular was a really poor goal to lose after getting ourselves back into the game and conceding a goal right after our first equaliser. But I think that rather than be concerned about that per se, I think the issue, the main issue was that Standard played so well, and I don't think we knew how to deal with them, to be honest, in that first half. And we were trying to play a normal game. We were trying to force Tav and Barisic as far forward as we could, like we normally do, and it wasn't working because they were forcing their players forward. And the problem we had was that our midfield was struggling badly. I thought Davis had his worst game in a long time, and certainly for the first half an hour or so. Kamara was poor, and even Arfield was struggling to get into the game. And further forward, Kent wasn't getting on the ball. Neither was Morelos, and Roof was giving it away as well. So right through the team we were struggling, and I think. Obviously the goals came for the wide areas, but it was because the first goal, I don't think Arfield gave enough cover on the right hand side, and then the second goal, just like you mentioned, Colin, it was Kamara that was sort of fell asleep and didn't realise they were taking a quick free kick, and certainly didn't get out there fast enough. As I say, there was 2 or 3 players just seemed to be off the boil and just seemed to lack a bit of pace, and I think we were just a bit surprised with how well Standard came out the box, and they really played at a high tempo and really had a go at us. But as I say, we struggled a wee bit, and that worried me a wee bit more than the goals themselves. But again, we'll have to take the positives. The reaction was excellent. Maybe we were a wee bit lucky with the penalty. I think that's fair enough. I mean, but we've had one against us. You'll remember Edmondson against Leverkusen in last season competition. I thought that was quite harsh. That's the rules, and it goes for you, it goes against you. We just got to deal with that. And then after half time, we played really, really well. We really took the game to the scruff of the neck, and I think Standard did actually tire a wee bit. I think they put a lot into that first half, and I think they got the sort of stuff and knocked out of them a wee bit just by the equalisers and both times. And then, as I say, we could have won that game 5-6-2 quite easily, and it wouldn't have flattered us. But definitely we'll have to maintain our defensive outlook. We'll have to be careful. I mean, against Falkirk, I think Bassey gave the ball away once or twice. Today he did it again, as did Balogun, and then at the very end McGregor let a pass back go under his boot as well. So it just shows you, if you do fall asleep at the level of the Europa League, then you will get punished. So we've got to be better if we want to go further into the competition and try and improve on what we did last season. Then you can't afford to give away cheap goals, and there's no doubt they were both cheap goals. And I'm just hoping it's just another lesson learned for the team and for the coaching staff, that we have to realise that teams just only come up to make up the numbers. They're there to try and match us and to try and beat us, and if we do that, we won't go far wrong in any level we're playing at.
Ross, coming back to Scott Arfield, another goal on the night. He's like Tavernier. He was a wee bit indifferent last season. in and out the team. But this year, he just seems to be, again, another level. And Gerrard, like Tav today, after the game on Thursday night, Gerrard was very praising Scott Arfield. And it seems that he's one of these players, you're thinking of players like Tav, Connor Goldson, Stephen Davis, McGregor, guys that really make that dressing room tick and drag the other guys along with them. And he seems to be one of those players this season, because I have to be honest, with some of the signings we made in the summer window there, I did wonder if he would feature at all this season. But it seems to have, it's this thing that Steven Gerrard wanted, the whole thing about 2 players for every position, increase the level of competition and bring the best out of players. And he seems to be one of the ones that's picked up on that, because his performances this season are probably the best that I've seen him play at Rangers since he arrived.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. He's impossible to leave out at the moment. Last season was really poor for Arfield. I think the year before, 2 years ago, that was his first year at the club. I thought he was really, really important to the way that we played. But last year he just went off the boil a wee bit. This year it's as if someone's lit a fire under him. It's as if he's looked around at the recruitment that we've done and the strides that everyone else is making and gone, I'm going to get left behind here. And he's approaching the tail end of his career. He's 32, something like that. So he doesn't have a huge number of years left in him. I think he realises that this is probably his last chance to make a big material contribution at Rangers. And Christ, he's really, really going for it. And it's phenomenal. I mean, that goal on Thursday night is wonderful. And again, we spoke about, I think it's the footage from behind the goal where you can hear all the shouts. You can hear him coming a mile off shouting for Kent. And fair play to Kent getting his head up and picking out that pass. It's really, really well done. But yeah, he's absolutely instrumental to everything that Rangers have done right this year. And I'm kind of happy to eat my words on Scott Arfield. I think he was poor last season, and I'll stand by that. But wow, he's really shutting me up this time.
You know what I loved about that footage from behind the goal? See, as you say, as Arfield shouts for it, and Kent sees him, as the ball's going across the face of the goal, you hear Tav shouting, "Go on, Scotty!" It's as if he can see there's an opportunity to score. Finish it, and not only does it show the sort of the best of Arfield, obviously that's who we're discussing at the moment, but I think it shows you how the team are working at the moment. They seem to be a well-oiled machine, talking well, supporting one another, and it was a great bit of footage. Frankie, coming back to you, our fellow Gersnet contributor Alex Anderson put out a remarkable sort of stat on after Thursday night, and it was Gerrard's European record, and it's played 40, won 21, drawn 14 and lost 5. Now I am 48 in my next birthday, and I am struggling to think of a Rangers manager who has had that sort of record in Europe over 40 games. I mean, I've not checked it, but I would be pretty sure that if he's not the best performing Rangers manager in my lifetime, then he's certainly up there. I think that's a remarkable record, and he really has since he's arrived at the club. And when you consider where we were the year before in Europe with Pedro in the hedge and all that kind of stuff, he has taken us to a new level, and it seems to be an arena he knows how to get teams playing in.
Aye, it's fantastic actually. I mean, if you went back 2 or 3 years to when he came in and suggested this is where we would be in such a short period of time in European terms, you'd get laughed at. Clearly, we need to achieve silverware domestically, and that's fine, and I'm hoping that'll be happening sooner rather than later. But the European stuff stands on its own really, really well, and it shows the progress of the team right through Gerrard's time at the club. And it's not like we're playing really small teams and provincial sides for sort of Eastern Europe. It's okay that there's some of the earlier games, the qualifying games, that we're not exactly playing the cream of the crop, but there's some great results. I mean, we should have beat Benfica twice, we've beat Feyenoord, we've beat Porto home, we should have actually beat them over there as well. You've beat League of Warsaw, loads of teams, you can go right through them all, and did well against teams like Villarreal, Spartak Moscow as well. So they really have demonstrated time and time again that we're prepared to go toe to toe with anybody. And I think the good thing is when you want to compare this side with other Rangers teams, where you go back to sort of 12 years ago to the Walters team that took us to Manchester, or further back to his team in the sort of inaugural Champions League. We're going and playing these teams, and as I said earlier, just going toe to toe with them, not standing back and parking the bus and hoping for a goal in the break or the odd set piece and trying to bully teams at corners. We're playing different tactics in different games. Occasionally we'll all play a low block or a medium block. Other times we'll deploy a high press, or we'll try and get into the channels. We'll go direct, and that's been a feature of our play this season at home and abroad. Actually, is we've varied it up and a lot more than what we've done previously. And I think it's our experiences in Europe that's allowed us to do that. I think we play a lot better football than we're given credit for. I think it's excellent sometimes. Some of the stuff, I think the second goal over in Benfica, when goes and has the ball on the byline and chips it out to Tav, who then knocks it up the line, and we've done that time after time this season. I think the first game up at Aberdeen we did it, and teams just that can't seem to cope with it, and that's why, for example, today County, they allowed us to have the ball. They didn't try and offer that high press, but it's something that we will experience away in Europe, for example. So it's something that you have to be able to deal with, and that, as I say, that confidence comes entirely from our European play over the last few years, and we deserve a huge amount of credit to have that kind of record, and to only be beaten a few times, and recently only by Leverkusen, who, let's face it, they're a Champions League team, they're a top quality side. It really bears well for us, and it's, as I say, it all rolls into one thing. It's just confidence for the players, it's confidence for the fans, and it's fantastic. And as I say, we just need to add that cherry on top now, which is silverware, and that probably is not going to come in Europe, but it should and hopefully will come domestically.
Ross, given all the positives in Europe and Gerrard's record, which Frankie's just sort of highlighted there, what's your hopes for the knockout stages? Because I felt we were unlucky last season with the draw. I mean, we really did get one of the teams that were probably one of the favourites to win it, and they showed over the two legs that they were a level above what we'd sort of played before. But if we get a kinder draw, could you see us going fairly far in this competition?
Don't forget, obviously, we the first team we had in the knockouts was Braga, which was, actually, considering we came second in that group, not a bad draw that we could have got. So I was just been looking through the tables. If we win that group, which, like I say, all we have to do is match Benfica's result. We don't even have to beat them on goal difference or anything. We win the group, and if that happens, I think I'm right in saying that we'll play a team that finished second in their group. There's some beatable teams there, young boys. We obviously know a lot about. Mold, we've come up against before and seem to have sort of almost an annual tie against Celtic at the moment. Bayer Leverkusen, please do not want them. Avoid. PSV Eindhoven, avoid. Real Sociedad, avoid. Could get Braga again, would take them. AC Milan would be very, very funny. So there's a couple of teams that I certainly wouldn't want. Someone like Tottenham or there's a few clubs that I think we should avoid, but there's some beatable clubs there. And the clubs that we've, as Frankie says, the clubs that we've beaten in the last 2 years, man, are incredible. Clubs like Porto beat them over two legs. If this was a two-legged tie against Benfica, we'd have won that on away goals. So it's almost like you shouldn't fear anyone. And how far can we go? Well, we're taking on the best that this competition has to offer, and no one's beaten us. No one will want to face us. So then I started thinking about, well, who have we got in the Champions League that's about to drop down? I mean, there's clubs like Real Madrid, so ideally avoid that kind of a draw. But there's clubs here who are no better than what we've already beaten in the last 2 years, and we're stronger than we have ever been, I think. So bring it on. I'm not saying we're going to win it. I mean, it's the odds on us winning it are sort of 50 to 1 or something, but there's no reason why we can't go one better or two better than we did last year, and it's such a joy to witness it. The only real regret is that none of us can be there. Some of these trips, how much would you have loved to have gone to Poznan? I've never been to Poznan. It would have been an incredible trip, but look, it's not to be. The most important thing is that the club is there, and the club is, I think, doing us all proud.
My biggest fear is we get Real Madrid and we can't go. It was bad enough not getting to see Benfica, but Real Madrid would be a proper kick in the teeth. But I'm like you. That's the reason I asked the question. I think we could maybe go one or two better this season if the draw's favourable. And given what came out in the recent accounts in terms of how important European football is, I think that would obviously be a bonus. Speaking of the sort of money side of things, guys, I thought we would finish up the sort of last 10 minutes of the show looking at Dave King's comments on Thursday, Friday there. Obviously, there was an announcement that Club 1872 are going to try and purchase his shareholding. And on the back of that, there was an interview with STV with Dave King. So, Frankie, I'll come at you first. It's just a sort of your general feel about some of the comments he made, because I saw some positive stuff on social media and also saw some negative stuff. And a couple of things he said were a bit bullish and made me sort of wince a wee bit. But interested to hear your points. So, I mean, one of the things that he claimed Club 1872 is the best representation of what he feels is a meaningful supporters group. He says he has a long relationship with them, and he also said that they deserve a seat on the board, if at the end of this process they've accumulated enough of a shareholding. And an interesting comment, he said the current chairman would be receptive to that. One of the things that kind of made me wince a wee bit was the comment about, we value the squad at 200 million. Now, I'm not saying he's a million miles off that, but I think comments like that always just attract headliners, to sort of twist words and all the rest of it and make it sound worse than it actually was. And he also said, and I think we've already discussed this, that it would be sort of essential, inevitable in the summer that one or two of the playing assets would be moved on to balance the books. So what were your views on that sort of stuff with Dave King?
Well, first and foremost, I think we have to thank Dave King, don't we? I mean, it was mentioned in the interview. I don't know where the club would be if Dave and the other guys involved, the three bears, didn't wrestle control from Greenco and the other chancers. So for me, he'll always go down as a legend. I think time will be kinder on King and what he achieved at his time as chairman and as major shareholder, and I think it might be a number of years before we really appreciate just how important he was to the club and what he managed to do. However, I'm not entirely convinced about what's happened in the last few days. The timing worries me a wee bit. I can understand his intentions seem fairly honourable, and I think for Club 1872 to achieve more shares and for fans to have a 25% plus one shareholding would probably be a positive in most supporters' eyes. However, as I say, it for me it kind of sort of detracted to what was happening on the pitch, and I guess there's a reason for that, because I mean they want the scheme to the Never Again scheme to be successful. So the best time to do something like that is when the team's playing well and things are going well on the park. But at the same time, if you're going to do that, then let's keep it fairly low key, and let's avoid the kind of sort of media comments that you mentioned that can in themselves detract for the scheme, because these are the headline comments about £200 million playing squads and stuff like that, and Willie's not entirely wrong. If it was me, I would be wanting to concentrate entirely on what he was trying to achieve and talk about the shareholding and talk about his relationship with Club 1872 and talk about the organisation itself, discuss why the money should be going to this scheme and not into the club. Stuff like that. And there's time for that to happen. I know Dave's doing an interview with Stevie Clifford on the Full Lads of Had a Dream blog and podcast. That's going to be next week. I think probably next weekend it might come out. I'm not entirely sure. I'm hoping he'll do one with us as well. It might be rather different for Stevie's one, but I know there's been a lot of good questions on our forum. For example, we've got guys like Blue Dell and Craig on our forum who are accountants, and they're intelligent guys, they're fair guys, they've got a lot of integrity, and they know their stuff. So I would certainly recommend anybody that's watching this go and have a look at the forum and see what they're saying, because they know a lot more than me. I'm just a layman, and I can only sort of go off my sort of gut instinct more than anything else. And as I say, I don't think that the scheme's a bad thing per se. However, I do worry somewhat about the timing, and I do worry somewhat about the intentions, and it's up to King to answer a bit more of our doubts in that respect, and the same with Club 1872, to be fair, and I think that'll hopefully happen. I do think it could be a good thing, but I think it has to be managed better than what it has been so far. But we're maybe nitpicking a wee bit at the minute, but we'll see what happens over the next few weeks with it.
Ross, another thing he said was he couldn't see Steven Gerrard leaving the club at any point soon. And if he was going to leave, he would only be tempted by one club, and I think we all know who that is. It's kind of the impression I get from Steven Gerrard. I think he's honoured every contract he's ever signed, every interview, every documentary about him, every podcast I've heard him speaking. There is a certain level of integrity that comes with Steven Gerrard, I think. And I must admit, I kind of agreed with him. I especially if this season goes to plan and we get a crack at the Champions League, I don't think Steven Gerrard would be tempted to go anywhere else. King was obviously integral in Gerrard coming in the first place. So do you agree with that? Do you think if any suitors did come in, because he's doing such a good job at the moment, it is a possibility? Do you think he would be tempted, or do you think King is on the money?
No, I think King's on the money. I don't see him being tempted by. I mean, obviously, we're talking about him potentially going to Liverpool, and it's almost as if that story's been written. So that narrative is set that one day, no doubt, one day he will go there. He's come to Rangers to prove himself that he can work at a top club, and I think he's done that already. I think if Jurgen Klopp walked away today, Liverpool would be on the phone tomorrow, and I don't think Rangers would stop him. I think Rangers would say, pay us the compensation, but and he can go. So I don't have any worries about him going to a West Ham or a Newcastle or something like that, because he's not going to get what he gets from Rangers at those clubs. He's never going to get a shot at the Champions League. It's a guy who's never won a league title, by the way. He's never going to have a better opportunity to do that than do that as a manager at Rangers before he gets his chances at Liverpool. So I do agree with him that with Dave King, that I don't see Gerrard being tempted by anything else. And you're right, Gerrard comes with a more than just a small degree of integrity. It's why the fact that rival fans can only attack Gerrard by making fun of the fact that he fell over during a game about 7 years ago. Like, they call him Slippy G because there's nothing else to call him, because the guy is bulletproof. So yeah, he has a lot of integrity. He will honour out the agreements that he has with Rangers until that call comes from Liverpool. I don't think any of us have had any pretense otherwise since day one. But it looks, it's looking very, very positive that Gerrard will be the man to bring silverware back to Ibrox, and I'm delighted that we've had him for as long as we have. And I think we ran into some sticky situations before the previous season was cancelled, and some really, really poor results against Hamilton and Hearts, and things were looking bad. But he's learned from that. He's come back from it. It's an incredible run of form that we're on this year. So no, I'm on the same page as Dave King on that. I have to say, I completely agree with Frankie on the questions around the money and the shares and the investments, and why is that money not going directly to the club? And you could get really, really quite cynical about that. The timing is odd. I don't know. It doesn't quite sit right with me either. But yeah, I can't argue with his comments on Gerrard.
Frankie, one last thing before we go. Dave King said on Friday that he felt that if it hadn't been for his involvement and the consortium's involvement in 2015, the club would currently be in a sort of perilous state. Would you agree with that? And is that his legacy, the fact that he's left the club in a greater sort of state than he found it? Will history, as you said earlier on, will history be kind to him in years to come?
I don't think there's any doubt about it, to be honest. I sat in the Blue Room at Ibrox when Charles Green took control, and he had a meeting with about 30 or 40 other fans, and I was sitting with one or two, one lady that was involved with the trust for a number of years and Bluedale from the forum, and right away I knew Green was at it. And I remember Imran Ahmed was at the back of the room as well, and he kept looking at him, and I was suspicious right from the very start. And I think it was pretty much proven over time that there was, I was right to be like that. And I mean, that's not to try and say that you know everything and try to be a smart arse. It was just obvious to me, and everything from then on, it was all about making Charles Green money, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing if the club is doing well out of it as well. But when you involve Mike Ashley, that isn't the case. I mean, ask any Newcastle fan that, and that's where Rangers were heading. We were heading to be another club of Ashley, or certainly controlled by Ashley. And is Newcastle a successful club? Some people argue they are because they're in the Premier League, but other people say they've not won anything in God knows how long. So for me, I think we're in the right hands, and I was glad that King took over. I've never been King's biggest fan. I'm quite happy to admit that. I think there's doubts about his some of the things he's said and some of the things he's done in the past, not just in terms with relate to Rangers, but his own businesses. However, I think, as I said earlier, I think history will look much kinder on him in maybe 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 years, and I think he deserves a lot of credit, and I don't think there's any doubt. I would much rather have a Dave King in charge or involved with Rangers than a Mike Ashley or a Charles Green. In fact, they're not even in the same ballpark, to be honest.
Sorry. Done it again. I'm still on mute. Sorry, Frankie. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think history will hopefully be kind on him, and it was interesting to hear his comments on Friday. But looking at the clock, guys, I think that's just about all we've got time for this week. So a big thanks to Frankie and Ross for their comments and their contributions tonight. Another great show and good stuff from them. We've got one more Europa League game on Thursday night against Lech Poznan, but we'll have a preview show out on Wednesday as usual this season. And we'll have the show next Sunday. We travel to Tannadice next weekend. We'll have the show out next Sunday. I can't remember off the top of my head who's hosting that at the moment. But in the meantime, get yourself over to the Gersnet website and forums at www.gersnet.co.uk. And in the meantime, as I've said throughout the last sort of 7 or 8 months, Guy, look after yourself, stay safe, and until the next time, bye for now.